If you're planning on selling your home in Denver this spring, there's something you need to understand. Most sellers don't lose money because of the market. They lose it before the market ever sees their home. They give away leverage without even realizing it. And once leverage is gone, it's very hard to get it back. So today, I want to walk you through the most common mistakes Denver sellers make before they list, especially if you're navigating this solo, because protecting your position is very different than preparing your house. Last week we talked about creating space, decluttering, depersonalizing, and cleaning. That prepares your home physically and you emotionally. Today, we're protecting your power strategically. Let's start here. Yeah, too many sellers wait for the buyer's inspection to reveal issues, and I get it. In today's world, it almost feels safer to say, well, everything's fine as far as I know, right? Especially because a few years ago, we were in a market where you could practically say, take it or leave it, there's a line forming behind you, and that worked. But that is not the Denver market we're in today. Inventory is building, buyers are comparing, and they're absolutely doing inspections. Now, here's where this becomes a leverage issue. If you've been living in your home for 15, 20, 30 years, and you've rented it out at some point, if seasonal maintenance hasn't always been top of mind, there are probably things you don't think about anymore. Not big disasters, just aging systems. An older roof, a furnace that's still running but getting tired, a small foundation crack you've been walking past for the last 10 years, or a deck that might need reinforcement. When the buyer's inspector finds these things first, the conversation changes. Now the buyer controls the narrative. They're not asking, do we love the house? They're asking, what else haven't I seen? And once doubt enters the room, leverage starts to soften. That doesn't mean you have to fix everything, and this is important. You do not need to renovate your whole house before you sell it, but you do need clarity, because when you understand your home's condition up front, you have options. You can price it strategically, offer a credit confidently, repair selectively, or simply disclose with strength. Information equals control, and control equals leverage. And in this market, your leverage matters. This is where I usually tell sellers, before we ever talk about list price, we talk about risk. Every home has it. The question isn't, is something wrong? The question is, do we know what it is before the buyer does? Because that changes everything. And if you're even wondering what might show up in your inspection, that's a conversation worth having before you list. Now, the second mistake I see sellers make is, this happens to me all the time. Right before selling, a seller says to me, I think I should update the kitchen, maybe redo the primary bathroom. Should we put in new flooring or replace all the carpet? And I understand why. You want it to look good. You want buyers to walk in and be impressed. But here's what I gently remind them. Buyers don't make offers based upon what you would choose. They make offers based upon what feels safe to them. And in today's market, especially in the Denver suburbs, most buyers don't want a project. Whether they're younger buyers juggling kids, or empty nesters downsizing, or someone buying solo for the first time, they want stability. They want it to feel like major systems work, that the roof isn't going to leak, that the furnace won't fail 30 days after closing, that they're not stepping into a money pit. Yes, the Tom Hanks kind. Cosmetic style? They can change that later. But if a water heater fails in the first month, that's not style, that's stress. And here's where sellers quietly give away leverage. They spend $40,000 updating a kitchen that the buyers may not love, but they ignore the 18-year-old HVAC system that becomes a negotiating issue. Sometimes replacing or servicing major systems protects you more than any backsplash ever will. This is where strategy matters. Not every improvement increases leverage. Some improvements simply drain your equity. When I sit down with a seller, we don't start with Pinterest boards. We start with priorities. What actually reduces risk? What increases buyer confidence? And what protects your negotiating position? Because there's a big difference between improving a house and positioning it. And that's a very specific conversation based on your timeline and today's Denver market conditions. If you're even thinking, I'm not sure what's worth doing and what's not, that's exactly the right time to have a strategy conversation. You'll find my contact information below. Now, here's another way sellers quietly give away leverage. Another way sellers quietly give away leverage is by testing the market. I hear it all the time. Let's just put it a little high and see what happens. And I understand the thinking. You don't want to leave money on the table. And in 2021, that strategy worked. But in 2026, especially here in the Denver metro area, that's a fast way to weaken your position. Let me explain. Your first 7 to 14 days on the market are your strongest days. That's when most eyes are on your listing, the serious buyers schedule showings, and those online algorithms give you priority. That window's powerful. If you overprice and reduce later, buyers don't think, oh, good, a deal. They think one or two things, and neither of them is good for your bottom line. They think, what's wrong with it? Or worse, the seller is flexible. How much more can we push? And once that perception sets in, leverage softens quickly, because now you're not positioned as confident, you're positioned as negotiable. And those are two very different things. Positioning correctly from day one protects your negotiating power. Now, if this has you thinking, well, I'm not going to give it away, here's the real question. Is it giving it away if pricing it correctly attracts a ready, willing, and able buyer and allows you to move forward with your plans on on your timeline? Or is overpricing what actually gives it away slowly? That's a strategic conversation, and it's not about underpricing, it's about positioning. And even when the price is positioned correctly, leverage can still slip away, because what happens after you hit the market matters just as much as how you enter it. Here's another place sellers quietly give it away. It's not the price, it's how they respond once the market responds to them. Some sellers react too quickly. They offer concessions before they requested. They drop the price after one slow weekend. They assume silence means something is wrong. But here's the other extreme I've seen, and it's just as risky: waiting too long. Taking days to respond, letting offers sit without communication, creating uncertainty about whether they're serious. And here in the Denver market, 24 hours, that's usually enough time to acknowledge and respond thoughtfully. Because when buyers don't hear back, doubt creeps in. They start wondering, are they serious? Are they difficult? Or are they waiting for something better? And doubt shifts leverage. Now, I want to be clear. You don't need to rush, but you do need to be intentional. There's a difference between being calm and being unavailable. There's a difference between negotiating confidently and reacting emotionally, because buyers feel those energies. And if a seller appears frantic, buyers push harder. If a seller appears disengaged, buyers move on. But the calm, responsive seller, the one who acknowledges, evaluates, answers strategically, that seller keeps control. And control is leverage. But here's the part that ties us all together. None of this makes any sense unless you understand how buyers are thinking right now, because the buyer psychology of 2026 is very different than it was just a few years ago. Buyer psychology is subtle, and it shifts quietly before sellers notice. When inventory increases even slightly, buyers don't rush. They compare, they run numbers, they look at 3 homes instead of 1, they ask for credits, they negotiate more confidently, they analyze inspection reports carefully. And that doesn't mean your home isn't desirable, it just means buyers feel options. And when buyers feel options, strategy matters more. This is especially important if you're selling solo, because when you're navigating this on your own, every showing feels personal, every slow weekend feels significant, and every repair feels like a criticism. And that's when reactive decisions happen. But reactive decisions cost you leverage, and leverage is what protects your bottom line. So here's the truth. You don't protect leverage by being aggressive, and you don't protect it by being stubborn. You protect it by being prepared. Prepared with clarity, prepared with pricing strategy, prepared with repair priorities, prepared with a negotiating plan before you ever need one. February is about positioning, and March is about execution. And sellers who protect their leverage before they list, they walk into the market calm, they negotiate confidently, and they move forward on their timeline, not the market's. Hi, if we haven't met, I'm Peggy Dursthoff with Live Denver Suburbs, powered by HomeSmart, and I specialize in helping women 50 plus sell strategically, especially when they're doing it solo or stepping into a new chapter. If you're even thinking about selling this year and you want to talk through what protecting leverage would look like for your specific home here in the Denver metro area, my information's down below. And if you haven't watched the preparation video yet, that's the one where we talk about creating space before you ever list. I'll link it here so you can watch this in the right order, because preparation and protection go together. I'll see you there.